everybody, Dr. Noah Moose here, and it's Monday again, so that means Muscle Monday. So today's muscle we're going to focus on is the adductor muscle. So the adductor muscle is this muscle kind of right in here, big muscle on the inside of the leg. One of its big things that it does is it actually will bring the leg back midline in lateral movements, and then when we're going forward, such like running or something like that, it actually keeps the knee from diving in. So it's a big stability muscle that helps to basically kind of prevent too much movement one way or the other when we're running and doing stuff like that. So one of the things that a lot of people don't really know about this muscle is in Eastern medicine, it's actually related to the what's called the pericardium meridian. It's also referred to as the circulation sex meridian. So this meridian actually has a big governing ability on our neurohormonal system. So things like chronic stress, chronic fatigue, too much training load can actually have an issue on this, can actually stress this meridian out. So one of the things that we see with the adductor is actually a really good indicator of actually how recovered our body is. It can also be affected with like changes in development and stuff like this. Oftentimes, if you've worked with like adolescent athletes and those kind of things like that, you'll actually see a lot of times that they're in their running pattern that knee is actually caving in too. This actually is because their neurohormonal system is changing and adapting rapidly, and there's a lot of stress with the growth and development cycles. So what we want to do is we want to focus on some of the unique features of this. So there are basically three big nutrients that are related to this muscle. Vitamin E, zinc, and essential fatty acids are your omega-3s and omega-6s. So getting the right balance of those can actually help to strengthen this up. Now we've seen this in a lot of cases where we've done rehabilitation exercises and things like that, and that muscle pattern, that kind of movement pattern isn't actually improving. It's not until we start to supplement in with these certain nutrients that help to support basically the proper hormone like processes, recovery processes, stress hormone reduction that we start to see these movement patterns start to change. So I think an interesting thing about vitamin E is a lot of people don't know that vitamin E actually is one of these nutrients that actually has 8 different forms to it. And so what typically when you're looking at vitamin E off of the shelf, most of the vitamin E is measured by the alpha tocopherol component. And so in antioxidant vitamins like vitamin C and vitamin E, there's actually there's a full spectrum of these nutrients, and what the labeling is actually looking for is it's looking at the antioxidant component. So what I always like to say is what they're trying to do is if you think about an antioxidant vitamin as a, kind of like an egg, right? The antioxidant component of it is like the egg shell. Well, very few of us are actually going out and eating eggshells, doing those kind of things. We're looking at the nutritive components that are actually present inside of the, the egg white and the egg yolk. Those things that actually help our body to kind of, that actually feed our body with nutrition and nourishment and those kind of things. And so when we're just looking at an isolated synthetic like antioxidant, it's actually not going to have much effect on the body. So for vitamin E's, if you're looking at, if you have an issue where you may have some issues with the adductor, or for some reason you can't get like that whole like lower leg to stabilize, you want to look for a vitamin E that's a mixed tocopherol or a mixed vitamin E, which actually has all the different forms of vitamin E in it as well. We actually find that those are really the only ones that will actually help to strengthen this muscle up in that whole area. And then zinc is really important for all of the kind of hormonal cascade. It helps our body to transition, cholesterol into pregnenolone to progesterone to all of your testosterones, estrogens, DHEA, all of those kind of hormones. If you don't have enough zinc, your body can't synthesize your hormones correctly. So oftentimes we see zinc deficiencies underneath some of these dysregulated hormonal patterns. And then our essential fatty acids, so fat is actually, and cholesterol are actually our precursors to all of the hormones. So if we don't have a good balance of the anti-inflammatory fats, and we have too many inflammatory fats, we're not going to be able to feed our neurohormonal system the raw materials it needs to kind of go down that normal pathway. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're getting a full spectrum vitamin E, that we have zinc sufficiency. There's a really easy test you can do. They actually make them, they're called zinc taste solutions. And if you actually just take a little bit of that and drop it in your mouth, you should immediately taste a kind of metally sensation in your mouth. It should be a little metally and dry. If it basically just tastes like water, that's a sign that you might be insufficient in zinc. So that's a really easy thing that you can do to actually measure your zinc status. And then as far as your essential fats, there's actually some finger stick tests you can do to measure your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, but making sure that those nutrients are balanced actually has a really, really profound effect on this adductor muscle and on that kind of circulation sex meridian, our whole neurohormonal system. So, you know, if you've ever been out on the trail or you have a training partner or something that maybe you see that, you know, that knee is just very unstable, or you work with or coach, you know, adolescent or teenage athletes, you've probably seen this very often with that knee diving in. And there's a lot of great exercises that you could do to help kind of train that pattern, but oftentimes we see that this nutritional component underneath this is actually needed as well to kind of create this whole holistic activation of this whole, this kind of like neurological meridian muscle connection. So to be able to really make those exercises as effective as they can be, it's important to make sure that the right nutrients are present and things like that. One of the reasons that we get deficient in a lot of these nutrients too is eating of processed foods. So processed foods require our body to actually use our own vitamin E to kind of process those through. Zinc actually is devoid of in a lot of processed foods. And then oftentimes in our processed foods, we have oxidized oils and fats and things like that. So we actually need good fats from healthy kind of cold processed, low heat processed oils that aren't oxidized or creating inflammation in our bodies. So those are some of the three big things that we see that are associated with this muscle is a good mixed tocopherol vitamin E, making sure you're getting zinc sufficient, and then making sure that we're actually getting the right balance of you know, omega-3s and omega-6s to kind of balance that whole inflammatory cycle and make sure that we're giving our body the raw materials it needs to function. So I hope you guys find this information interesting. We look forward to seeing you next Monday.